Hi, this is a guitar mini course. This is going to be G Ionian, key of G. I'll be doing 3-note per string scales, hexatonic patterns, which are 6-note patterns, and I'll be playing up and down on single strings. This is part 2 of the series that I'll be doing here over the next several weeks. So I'll be my basic strategy will be to play and say the note names ascending for each of the concepts, but not necessarily descending. So refer to the PDF that's linked in the description below if you need to follow along here. So the first box there of 3-note per string scale: G A B, C D E, F sharp G A, B C D. Descending. So you'll notice that every 2 strings is the identical fingering. So I'll sometimes use the term symmetrical fingering. It just means that the fingerings are the same on adjacent strings. Now, if you go up to the 10th position where the next box is, you'll notice the bottom 3 strings are all the same fingering pattern. So D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. Backwards, descending. And I just end back on G, since I am thinking of this as a G Ionian. I just wanted to include that one today because I thought it was interesting what happens there in that particular pattern. So maybe what I'll do is I'll maybe talk about that one a little bit. So one of the things that you can do here is my progressions will be later in the video. The jam tracks will be a G chord, a C chord, and a D chord. So you'll notice in this particular position, you kind of have very convenient G A B D or G A B D E, which is G Major Pentatonic. Then right next door you have C D E G A, which is C Major Pentatonic, and then on the lowest strings, D, E, F sharp, G, A is D Major Pentatonic. So you can use that to kind of create riffs. So there's your 1, 4, 5. Now, the other interesting thing that happens on the bottom 4 strings, just like if you're on a bass, all your patterns are movable and you don't have to worry about the tuning difference between the G and B strings. So if I took, say, this C, if I took the C up 2 frets, that's the D. And then if I took this D1 and took it down 2 frets, then the C is 2 frets lower, same fingering, same pattern. Okay, so those are just a couple ideas there coming out of those pentatonic patterns. I mean, out of those 3-note per string patterns. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is you'll see the next note, play hexatonic 6-note groupings on strings 2, 1, 4, 3, and 6, 5. So you'll notice I have the guitar finger board shaded with those. So the interesting thing that happens is anytime you have any kind of note grouping, a melodic idea on any of those 2 string pairs, they can be transferred across. So I'll do that in a little bit. So I'll go ahead and do the notes on the top 2 strings, 6-note patterns: B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. All right, so I'll do the notes ascending but not descending. C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. Okay, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. G, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, And then we're back where we started from: B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So I'll just do like 2 more patterns. So I won't go all the way up to the highest D note. So C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and then D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Okay, so there's a couple things I can do here. So I think rather than doing every 2-string grouping, I'm just going to take a couple of these patterns and show you how you can transfer them across. So let's say you were here, G, A, B, C, D, E. Can also be played here, G, A, B, C, D, E. And then also here, G, A, B, C, D, E. Right, and then in these hexatonic patterns, you also have different kinds of major and minor triads. I'm not going to do every single combination because it gets a little bit complicated. So you have GBD, which is a G major triad, and then you have ACE, A minor triad. So G, A minor, then same thing here, G, A minor, G, A minor. Okay, and the only reason I'm sliding there is it's just a guitar-esque thing to do. For G, and then for A minor. All right. Okay, and then you also have the relative majors and minors there. The E minor triad is there, and also the C major triad. All right, let's move. Okay, how about this one here? So F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Move to here, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. And then F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Okay, so then you can use this to maybe sequence things together. So if I did like third intervals here, same thing here. Third intervals, dot. Okay, now there you have an interesting thing going on there. So you have a G chord, and then you also have an F sharp diminish. Okay, so that's a really interesting way to going back and forth between, like, say, a G chord and a D7 chord. D7. Right, so that F sharp AC is the top part of a D7 chord. G chord. D7, G chord, D7, G, D7, and one more G chord, D7. Okay. That's just a couple ideas there. Okay, so then the next concept will be play up and down on single string. So this is something that Mick Goodrich talks about in the Advancing Guitars. I've mentioned him in previous videos from years and years ago, and it's a great book. And Satriani talks about this too. So I think for today, let's just, since I'm in the key of G, I'll do something different than I did last time. How about I'll just do the G string? So up and down, saying note names ascending but not descending. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, and then there's no F sharp. So E, and then I'll do one more string here up and down. So how about I'll do a D string. So D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. Okay, so those are just a couple concepts. So the purpose and the my intention of these videos is to present these typical strategies. The 3-note per string is this typical strategy. The hexatonic scales, you do hear people talking about that. A little bit of pentatonic, and then playing up and down on a single string, saying the note names is something that you do find in different guitar pedagogies. So I think the thing I'll do next is I'll put the backing track on. So the backing track is going to have two different sections. So you're going to have G, C, D, C, two measures, 2 bars, 2 beats of each chord, and then the second part is going to be G, C, D, C, 4 beats of each chord. All right, so I'm just going to kind of maybe freely go in between these different concepts, and then I think what I'll do this time is I'll stop the backing track here for some reason. There's something that I come across that I like. So basically, what I'm trying to do is on the G chord, trying to pull out the G triad, C chord. Okay, and then on the D chord, the D chord. C chord, and then G chord. So, and I'm just kind of targeting for those notes. So I'll start off with that. C, D, C. So you can kind of see what I was doing. I was just, mostly just playing around the chord tones, and then every so often I would get a little bit freer in my concepts. Okay, so now I'm going to go up to here, up to this next 3-note per string scale. So same idea: G, G, B, D, C, and then here D, F sharp, A, C, and then G, and then I might also go down to here. Okay, let's see what that sounds. I'll go back to the beginning of this track here. So you got G, C, D, C. So once again, I'm just kind of targeting for the chord tones, and then every so often just doing some kind of scale passage that kind of gets me back to where I want to be. All right, so how about next? I'll just kind of randomly go. Let's just go right to here: D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. So that's going to be one of these 6-note patterns. Okay, and then when I want to get the C, I can get the C note up there, and I can get the F sharp here. So let's just, I'll just kind of stay within that 6-note pattern and this 6-note pattern, and just kind of freely improvise with this. So let's go back to the beginning one more time. This is the G, 3, 4, G, C, D. Going out of position there. Keep on climbing up. G, C, D. Okay, and now this next section. This is going to go on to the you know, where it's holding out longer. All right, I think what I'll do is I'm going to change my strategy here. So I'm just going to pick out a single string to play on. So I'm just going to play up and down on this second string and just kind of see what happens. You know, pulling out, you know, G, B, D, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, and then different kind of melodic passages to see what happens. Okay, improvising. I'll play the chord progression one time so you get a sense of how long each chord is lasting. So this is a good way to kind of get a more melodic sound because you're not relying on patterns. You have to kind of use your ear to pick out the right notes. All right, so then the other thing you can do here, which is maybe the most obvious thing, is just to play G Major Pentatonic. So I'm a big fan of these kind of patterns that are on adjacent strings, D, E, G, A, B. And then just pick out the notes that sound good as the different chords are coming by. And then this pattern here, G, A, B, D, E. Okay, and then that kind of leads into your typical blues box, your blues box, E minor, G Major Pentatonic. Okay, so maybe I'll just do some improv using this kind of part of the blues box. But I'm kind of going around that G chord rather than thinking of as E minor, and then this pattern here, and then this pattern here, and just kind of see what happens. I'll go back to the beginning of that section. So each chord, one measure. I'll play the chord one time. G, C, D, C. So I just want to point out one quick thing that I did at the end. So when I was going to that second C chord, what I was doing, rather than doing a full bend, so the G chord, on the C chord, I was just doing a half step bend up to the flat. That would be like the B flat note, which is like a blues note in the key of G, but it's also the flatted 7 of the C chord. So that's kind of interesting look. Okay, that's all I have for you today. So thanks for listening and watching.